Welcome to a new update. Today we're going to talk about altcoins and we're going to talk about potential ecosystems to invest in. Before we continue, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Also make sure to follow me on other social media platforms. Instagram, X, especially on X. I'm sharing all my information, my views and everything on the markets. So make sure to check it out. Now, when we're looking at the markets, I think one of the core topics of the previous periods were in which ecosystem should I invest in? Why am I asking that? Because we've seen a lot of momentum surrounding Solana. We've seen a lot of momentum surrounding Injective. We've had Runder. We've had Rune. We've had Tia, Tau, all those projects have been continuing to do well. Then some other ones started to wake up. And I think that at this point, there are certain ecosystems that are going to move that are not moving at all. And I'll be discussing with you which ones I'm interested in at what point in time. So there are going to be multiple ones. And instead of looking at a fundamental aspect, we're going to look at it from a technical aspect to include a few important topics that you should be focusing on when you're looking at potential investments into the markets. So the first one we should be looking at is the one that we see on the screen. It is Ether, and I come back to Ether because yes, it's still trending down. As you can see on the chart, we are still making lower highs, lower lows. So technically, since this high, we've in December 2021, we are trending down. September 2022, we had a peak because it took place around the swap from proof of work to proof of stake. And currently, we keep on continuing to fall as we have been rejecting at the previous support here at 0.06, as continue to fall. While we are approaching one of the most significant events that are going to take place on the Ether ecosystem in the upcoming week, the 7th of February, Denkun upgrade is going to take place on the final testnet. And you are like, okay, why should I know anything about the technical aspects of Ether? Well, the issue of Ether is that Ether is going to be a settlement layer. And it has such a high transaction costs that it's undoable to work with Ethereum at this point. It needs to be scalable, but needs to remain and retain its security. So therefore, the upgrade is going to take place. However, there are like two big narratives for Ether. Ultrasound money, which is the proof of work to proof of stake swap by having a deflationary burning mechanism, of course. They need to loosen that one because the upgrade is going to provide the opportunity of Ether to becoming the settlement layer of the new internet, which means that layer 2s can do transactions on Ether with a reduction of 90% of the costs, which means that if you're investing into Ether, probably the best thing you could do is investing into layer 2s, but also should be having Ether. So what we see here is the opposite of what we saw in 2022. We've seen a buy the rumor, sell the news event there. Right now we are seeing a sell the rumor, buy the news event, through which it's very likely to see that we're going to have a reversal at some point in time. And from a technical point, there are a few important ones to look at. First of all, if we sweep the low here, so if you do a sweep and come back up and reclaim, that is when you want to get yourself into a position. If we are not going to do that and make it higher low, the ultimate confirmation comes from the breakout and the flip here. So those are two arguments. And those two arguments can be found from a trading and technical perspective, in which you look at it from that way, taking liquidity or getting arguments to actually flip a certain level. Now, as I mentioned, if Ethereum is going to have a good upgrade, it is also going to have a positive impact given the fact that the spot ETF hype for Ether is at some point going to come. Probably there will be another delay, but there is a likelihood of between 50 to 80% that the ETF is going to be approved. And if it's going to be approved, it's going to have an impact in the markets, or at least towards the event, it's going to have a positive flow, which means that Ethereum is going to wake up. But it simply just takes some time. Now, when you want to look at this perspective, I've got the block here, but I think it's around these areas here, a little bit lower than I was assuming. If you want to get into the Ether ecosystem, you need to be looking into the ecosystem surrounding the layer 2s, which are Arbitrum and Optimism. I think, to be fair, if you look at what Solana has been doing, I think with the upgrades from Ethereum into Perspective, there is a larger ROI to be made when you're looking into assets that have not been moving as much as Solana and Injective have been doing. As a matter of fact, what you have been seeing is that if Ether starts to move up, Solana goes down, and the other way around. So in the ultimate best version is that if you're looking at a portfolio, or if you're looking at anything like it, you should be looking at opportunities that are undervalued compared to something that is overvalued. And in that way, if the conclusion is that Ether at some point at the upgrades is going to move well, then you need to be into layer 2s, because those are a beta on your portfolio and can grant you an additional return against Bitcoin. So in that way, Arbitrum is currently having a correction of approximately 30%, could go down some more, and I use the actual number of between 30 to 50% as a correction to make sure that in those boundaries I'm technically interested into an asset, and for Arbitrum that's the case. Now, when Ether starts to move, we know that Ether is going to be the internet for applications. So if it's going to make a move, you need to be into everything surrounding DeFi, and I think oracles are a crucial aspect. I think you should be into DeFi as a whole, and there are so many projects out there when it comes to DeFi. But as a first easy one, I think I come down to the conclusion that Chainlink is still the one that you should be looking at. In this case, Chainlink is again providing a very clear TA. So what we see for Chainlink here is that we've been making accumulation. Actually, this accumulation is taking place since here. So we actually rejected here, started to continue going sideways, and we start to break to the upside from here as well, which means that if we see this conclusion of this resistance, the likelihood of breaking out of this entire range is pretty significant. And if we break out of this range, because we have been into this range for such a long period, the impact is going to be massive. So what I concluded as well was the trend is currently upwards. We are making higher lows, higher highs. We are testing previous resistance levels for becoming support. We hold there and we start to attack the highs again. That's a bullish signal for the markets. And I trade something that is showing a bullish perspective. So I think that in the upcoming period, this is going to have a pretty substantial impact and could even run towards 67 and could even run towards 79. And even that, we've had a correction from 4,500 to 2,900, which is around 30 to 40%. That is when you want to get into a bull market, and that's when you want to scoop yourself into a position. Right now, if you have any correction between 10 to like 20%, that's still a trigger, but that is a lower time frame trigger there. So once we break out of this, I think Chainlink can perhaps do an even 2x, which would put Chainlink at $35 to $40 if Bitcoin remains flat. And if we get towards that area, there you go, we get towards these highs here. So I wouldn't be surprised if Chainlink continues to do that. I wouldn't. And then at some point in time, we probably have this run, have a correction back down, and start to continue moving up. Just like any bull market, any bull market is going to bring those opportunities. So if ETH starts to wake up, you need to see signals from layer 2s, you need to see signals from oracles. This is your signal from an oracle, and it's probably giving you the information you need. And from here we can start trending to the upwards momentum, as Chainlink has been going up for a very long time frame already. Another ecosystem that I'm interested in is Cosmos. And you're like, why would you be interested into something that is trending down so much? Well, if you look at Atom, if you look at Atom against USDT, you can see that we're just easily consolidating here, and we are facing ourselves on a higher time frame support, just comparable to what Chainlink has been doing against Bitcoin, but now it is Atom against USDT, and it needs to reverse the trend. Once it makes this higher low and comes back up here, we probably break these two highs and get into the potential target of $20 to $26. If we look at Atom against Bitcoin, it is a big shit show. You know that. But we're looking at a case of retesting these lows here. Alright. So we are at cycle lows. And we are at cycle lows, which were also the cycle lows in the previous one. So what we're looking at here is a downward sweep and probably back up, granting ourselves a bullish weekly divergence, which would mean that in the next run we run towards 75 or we run towards 10,000 sats, which is providing you with a potential upwards run. Hey, where you are? With a potential upwards run of 350% against Bitcoin. If Bitcoin remains flat, that would mean that you get towards $26 to $30 on Atom. And by having more Bitcoin, you are going to actually have a lot of more momentum into the market, and that's the core of what you want to achieve in these markets. So the trigger for Atom is relatively simple. You want to see this sweep, or you want to see the bullish divergence being concluded in the coming 1 to 2 weeks. Get it back up, and then you want to get yourself into a position here when it comes to the markets. Now, the final one is our little friend Polkadot, which is also an ecosystem that still didn't do much. But I have been mentioning a case of retesting important levels, and you can see DOT is doing it on the USDT pair. So we had a breakout, we actually tested the final resistance and been taking liquidity here. We have been rejecting at $6, and we've got a correction from $9.60 towards $6. Retest, quick front run, but as long as we stay above this block here, it seems very legitimate on a potential buy purpose into any of these buy ranges, because if we break through it, the next target is going to be between $16 to $20, which is like a 3x from here, which is like a very nice return. And I think that this one just is lagging behind all the other ecosystems. Like for instance, AVAX has been seeing it already. We have been taking liquidity here after a period of consolidation. So I do not think that AVAX at this point is going to outperform the performance from Polkadot, although it is showing a more heavy momentum. I'm definitely sure that, but it can also bring us back towards downwards momentum if there is going to be a rotation in the markets. And for instance, for Polkadot, what we are currently looking at is a case that we're looking at the higher low on the markets on the Bitcoin pair, and once we do, we can start getting into the ranges of the higher levels here, which is Polkadot towards $20 or perhaps even $25. I hope you have been enjoying this update. I'll be back next week on 2 updates again. Have a great day. Ciao.